Well, it's a big show.
Z.
It's 12:30 on the Big Show, and we're back with Kura on a hot property now. Since the announcement that 2 more weeks of lockdown, there's been a lot of questions regarding, especially in Dawayama rentals, because not a lot of people have been working this past month. Revenue has not been coming up. And how exactly is this going to be? What's the best way, actually, to deal with this, Kura?
Hey Ahmad, what a time to be alive and trying to keep up with our responsibilities like our rentals. Let's go through some quick tips. You know, we're in a volatile point in time. We're volatile in that inflation officially is at 676%. We haven't been working for the month of April. We're going into May. Rent is due. What can we do to put ourselves in a position that is comfortable and sustainable? Number one, keep the communication open. We have to talk to our landlords. It's always advisable for us to have our lease agreements in writing so that we've had a discussion. Let's set the rent so that we are clear, so we don't have nasty surprises of rentals doubling, tripling, quadrupling behind our backs. Putting it in writing is a protection from our side so that we can plan to it, and security from the landlord side so he or she can know what to expect when. So how are you going to do that? You're going to have a review to what is in the market. Go to any of the online classifieds, property.co.za, ZW, classifieds.co.zw, property book, any of them that are out there, and see what rentals are going for in your local area. Honestly, as a tenant for yourself, it's better that you are informed and put across an informed position to your landlord rather than waiting for a landlord to set a namo pezzaring price in his own mind. So rather go to the market and get an average rental which is sustainable, and you put that across as a proposal rather than wait for them to impose something that might be out of that. But remind yourself that if you are paying below market rentals, when your lease expires, your landlord, as a natural economic person, is going to want to review to a higher price and perhaps get somebody else in. We don't want you to be kicked out of your property. We want you to stay in there, so work on that.
Yeah, being kicked out is definitely not the plan at all. If you do have any questions for Kura at 0731168045, send through those voice notes. Or alternatively, follow us on our social media platforms at ZFM Stereo on Twitter and Facebook. This is Hot Property.
You're plugged in to ZFM Stereo.
Continuing with Hot Property with Kura, and we do this every single Tuesday from 12:30 up until 1 p.m. And today there's been a lot of questions about like rentals, who's supposed to pay for rentals, and a situation like this, what exactly is supposed to happen. Now, one thing that has been suggested by Kura is that we need to be proposing a lease to our landlord in this time, and right now we're actually drafting one to keep you safe. So we've already decided on the rentals. Now we'll be looking a bit at who is responsible to pay for what.
In the lease agreement, be clear who is going to pay for what. A lot of argument can arise on big bills, and it doesn't take long for bills to run up very quickly in a hyperinflation environment. Lease agreement needs to state who is going to be responsible for what. If you're staying in a complex, that complex has levies. Those levies are put upon the owner, but you as a tenant may or may not be making a contribution to that, and you need to maintain those services that are there. Maybe it's a generator, maybe it's the pool, maybe it's a caretaker who's providing some sort of service there. Be clear in your lease agreement, is the landlord paying for it so that he knows what cost he's in for, or are you as a tenant going to be paying that? There is no right or wrong answer in that. I have seen leases, I've done leases in both cases where the landlord is responsible for the levy or the tenant is responsible for the levy. But you need to be clear, and you need to include it in your calculation so that there is economic equity, so that you're not unduly burdened by those costs. You can't pay full market rental plus all of the levies, because that's being disadvantageous to yourself. But be mindful that there are some costs that the landlord is bearing, and he's going to look for some recoupment from you. Another big one, electricity. The best thing, if it's possible, get your own electricity meter so you know that you're using, you know what you're using, you know what you're paying for. It's always ideal to have the person who's using it paying for it. If it's separated, then there can be some delays. Somebody might not pay or juice on time, and you're left to cinema gets. That's not ideal. Communal living situations as well become a bit tricky, where you can't identify exactly who's used what magets, but get it in writing so that everybody can be clear.
Well, it's a big show.
Z.
Rentals, leases, and renewals. Hugely important period. When a lease comes to an end, there is not an inherent right for you to hold on to that property. If you've done a contract and you've stated that the lease starts in January and finishes in December, at the end of December, the landlord has the right to his thing back unless you have contractually agreed otherwise. So the option to renew, to protect yourself, you need to put it in the lease agreement to state that there is the tenant's option to renew, so that you're not putting yourself under pressure. So you have the opportunity to think about it. If your circumstances have changed, if you can still afford the rent, or you want to do something else, you need to give yourself that flexibility. So that's why we're doing this. We are writing our lease agreement that we're putting to our landlord, so that we are protecting our interests. I hope none of my landlord clients are listening. So the option to renew needs to be stated in writing. It's not automatic. Then you need to describe the circumstances under which that option will be exercised. Do you give notice of 30 days or 60 days to say, ngifuna udlala lapha, or you want to go? But make sure that it is in writing so that it is understood and you have reserved that right unto yourself.
Well, E for effort on the Ndebele attempt, but you wanted to say uhlala is to stay, or uhlala is to play. So we're not playing when it comes to our lease agreements. We want to make sure that everyone is protected, everyone is safe. So just in summary of everything, because we're coming up with this whole lease agreement, what should we be remembering?
Hey, just to wrap it up, Ahmad, get your lease in writing. Know who's going to pay what. Know how long you're going to stay in that property, when the rent can change, what circumstances it can change under. If you get all of this together, you now have a document that you can enforce your rights and make sure that you're comfortable. If push came to shove, hey, listen to that English. If push came to shove, you could take it to a rent board if there was ever a dispute. But just as good fences make good neighbors, good contracts make good lease arrangements. Look after your property, stay in peace and harmony, don't bug the neighbor, pay your landlord, please.
Yeah, well, no, E for effort. Dimzulu Kura, right, fine. Let's make sure that our neighbors are safe. Make sure, well, we have good relationships with our neighbors. We have good relationships with our landlords. Now, if you want any more information regarding rentals or any property issues at all, you can hit Kura up on Instagram, that is at PropI, or on Facebook or Twitter, that is at Kura Chihota. I nearly forgot that one. Or at Kura Chihota on both platforms. But you can always catch him right here on The Big Show every single Tuesday from 12:30 up until 1 p.m. on Hot Property.
Well, it's a big